quarterback league. He is still only a quarterback 2 and a low-end quarterback 2. I still think there possibly could be other streamable options. At this point, I would almost take the mystery of Ryan Finley over Mitchell Trubisky, even in a positive matchup like this. That being said, I love David Montgomery for this one. I think that he is going to be in for a huge game. The Lions give up the most fantasy points to running backs over the season so far. This is a home game for the Bears in the cold. This should be a huge game for the running backs. As far as the Lions go, I still think that Stafford will get his points for the most part. He's been one of the more efficient quarterbacks over the year. Golladay and Jones, I think that Jones may struggle a little more than Golladay because Golladay tends to run more the shorter in routes while Jones tends to be the deep ball threat.
Right.
So I think that Golladay still does okay. As far as the running backs, Johnson and McKissick, I still don't believe in either one of them for the most part, even in a favorable matchup against the Bears. So really, it's in terms of fantasy, my favorite plays for this are going to be probably Golladay, Montgomery, and Allen Robinson. Overall, I think I'd probably take the Bears in Soldier Field. I would say probably 24-21.
Yeah, well, I've covered this matchup numerous times at Soldier Field, and I know how windy it gets. I've covered it in nice weather, and I've covered it in cold weather. Let me tell you, that wind is really, really brutal. I think that's a bad matchup for Stafford. So I've got to give the Bears the edge, but I'm going to say that the Bears are going to win 28-20 or 28-22, somewhere around there. But they're going to, I mean, I think their defense probably gets them some points. And you're right, the Lions' issues with their running attack, they're bad. So Chicago over Detroit. Painful, but there's reality, and that's the reality.
Yep.
Now, from a game that's being played outdoors to one that's being played indoors, not that far away in Indianapolis, where you have the Fish going against the Horses, as in the Dolphins and the Colts. Now I know why they're bringing in Jacoby Brissett. All he's doing is facing the Miami Dolphins. Do the Dolphins get win number 2, or do they get loss number 8?
Oh, no, this will definitely be loss number 8 in this one. The Colts' defense has been very solid for the most part all year, especially taking the last few weeks. The Dolphins have no run game. They've lost what little bit of a run game they had in Mark Walton for the next 4 weeks.
Right.
And the Colts have been able to hold running backs to about 7 points under their projection on average every week for the last 5 weeks. And so really, this is going to force Fitzpatrick to have to throw the ball to Devontae Parker, and Allen Hurns really is the only other wide receiver for the Dolphins. So I think that this sets up well for the Colts defense. As far as the Colts offense goes, whether it's Brissett or Hoyer, both of them have positive matchups. If Brissett plays, he's obviously quarterback 2 that can put up solid numbers. The Dolphins cannot stop the run game for the life of them, so Max should be in for a huge game. I have him as a top 10 running back this week. Pascal and Kane, I think that they could be okay this week. I think that the Colts should get up early, quick, and really just depend on the running game and not have to pass the ball all that much throughout the rest of the game. So I think that Zach Pascal could have a decent fantasy game, maybe put up flex or wide receiver 3 numbers. But overall, I think Mac is the one is going to have the best game as far as fantasy goes. I say the Colts win this probably 28-14.
Yeah, I'll give the Colts 31-10 over Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to blow out the Dolphins. Dolphins don't hit the 0-16 club, but they're going to get smoked here. The Colts are anything but the New York Jets. Now, it doesn't seem like there's many things that can stop Christian McCaffrey, but maybe the frigid temperatures of Lambeau will as the Panthers take on the Green Bay Packers. Some thoughts on that?
No, Christian McCaffrey's still going to run all over the Panthers. Or still all
you mean
over
the
Packers.
Okay, if he runs over the Panthers, that's good.
Yeah, because here's the deal: the Packers, again, like I said last week, have done a pretty good job against quarterbacks and wide receivers, but they bleed points to tight end and they bleed points to running backs. They have given up the sixth most amount of points to running backs over the season in terms of fantasy, and so while I think the Packers end up winning this game overall. Christian McCaffrey will probably finish with, I'd say, another 125 to 175 total yards and 2 touchdowns.
Well, I hope you're wrong. I have to face him against a guy that doesn't know anything about football, so knows more about computers than he does with football. But when it comes to the luck of the draw, getting this guy, but I have to believe that whether what's his name, McCaffrey does well, I got to believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to do a whole lot better than what he did last week.
I think Rodgers should still have an okay game. The Panthers are middle of the road, really, in terms of going up against quarterbacks and wide receivers. But their run defense, I think this is going to go back to Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. I think both of them are in for great games. The Panthers give up the 5th most amount of fantasy points to running backs on the season. And over the last 5 weeks, on average, have allowed running backs to score an average of 10 points above their projection, which means basically they just kind of let running backs walk through the line and just kind of say, yeah, go score a touchdown, whatever. That's basically what their defense has done against running backs over the last 5 weeks. So I think that Aaron Jones is in for a huge week. I'd say, 110, 125 yards total, at least 1 touchdown. I think Jamal Williams gets into the end zone again this week. As far as the wide receivers go, now that Devontae Adams I believe he is back this week, officially and fully healthy. I think that he has a solid game. He may not put up, he may put up, wide receiver 1 numbers, so in the top 10 wide receiver. I have a feeling that because of game script, it may be more of a high end wide receiver 2 number, so in that kind of wide receiver 11 to 14 range. But overall, I think the Packers win this one, and I'll put this one at 24-17 Packers.
I'll just say 33-24 Packers. I think they're going to win it handily. All right, well, let's go on to the only winless team left against a team that won a very convincing one, the Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, I think I have him as very close to, if not my quarterback 1 for this week. I think it's right now it's between him and Drew Brees just because their matchups are so favorable. Lamar Jackson should be able to not only pass the ball all over the place, but also run the ball all over the place against this Bengals defense. So the Bengals give up the 2nd most amount of fantasy points to running backs, 6th most to quarterbacks. And so, that's a double whammy for Lamar Jackson to just absolutely tear apart this Bengals defense. As far as the Bengals go, really the only fantasy asset I see in here is really AJ Green. And we don't even know what his fantasy status is going to be. Here's the thing with Green and Boyd's status should go up, his fantasy viability. He always has played better when AJ Green is in the lineup. When it's up to Tyler Boyd, he tends to sink back. He faces top coverage, is not able to really break free. He does much better when they can allow him to be in the slot, to face a slot corner, strong safeties and that sort of thing. So his fantasy viability goes up. I still think he's only about a wide receiver 3. AJ Green, I'm only expecting wide receiver 3 numbers again because we're dealing with a rookie quarterback against a defense that is making fantasy quarterbacks score about 5 points less than their projection over the last 5 weeks. So really, it's the Ravens should stomp this one. I'm putting this one. This one I'm finally going bold, and I'll put the Ravens say 38-10.
I'll go 35-3 in favor of the Ravens. Yeah, the Bengals don't belong in this contest, but you have to play them.
Yep.
So, long day for the Bengals. All right. Well, this is an interesting matchup. The Buffalo Bills against the Cleveland Browns. A battle of two quarterbacks taken in the same draft. It looks like Mr. Allen has done far better than Mr. Mayfield.
Yeah, I think that this is a favorable matchup for the Bills. I mean, just looking at the defense of the Bills, they are the fourth best team against quarterbacks and the second best team against both wide receivers and tight ends in terms of giving up fantasy points. So this is going to be tough sledding for the pass game for the Cleveland Browns, which has already been struggling. But the Bills give up a ton of work and a ton of points to running backs. They've given up an average of 7 points over projections to running backs over the last 5 weeks. And so I think that both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt could be in for solid weeks. I still being cautious with Kareem Hunt. I don't have him any more than a flex play, kind of a low end running back too, kind of that 20 to 25 area. Chubb, I have him as a top 10 running back this week still. The Bills, though, I think should be in for a solid game. Allen's ability to run the ball is going to be a positive against the Browns. Just look what Russell Wilson did against the Browns a few weeks ago in their matchup. He was able to run all over the Browns. Devin Singletary should be in for a huge game. I really like him for this week. The Browns give up the 9th most amount of fantasy points to running backs. I think that Cole Beasley is an interesting streamer pick. I think that he could, he's averaged about 7 targets per game and very well could finish this week with another touchdown. So overall, I think the Bills win this. I don't think it's going to be extremely high scoring. I'd say 17-14 Bills.
And I'll go 20-13 Buffalo. All right, Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints. This one's an interesting matchup. I know a lot of people aren't expecting a whole lot out of Latavius Murray here, probably because Kamara's back.
Yeah, with Kamara coming back, that pretty much zaps all of Latavius Murray's value for the most part in terms of fantasy. They're going to, now that they have Alvin Kamara back, he is healthy. He's had the extra bye week to just sit and get healthy. So he is in really good shape for this week. So yeah, really, this basically takes Latavius Murray out of the mix in terms of fantasy viability. Now it helps that they're going up against the Falcons, who are just awful. Really, their defense is absolutely terrible. And so for that being said, Breeze is going to be a top 5 quarterback. I still think that Kamara is going to be a top 10 running back this week. Michael Thomas is going to be a top play. I still don't have any fantasy inclination in terms of Jared Cook. I think that he's not really part of the game plan overall. I thought that he would get a little bit of a boost with Teddy Bridgewater, and that just didn't happen. Tight ends just aren't being targeted in this offense since Jimmy Graham left. So
right, I remember that. Okay, good point.
And then as far as the Falcons go, the Saints give up a fair amount of points to wide receivers. However, it's the secondary wide receivers. So Julio Jones is going to be facing Marshawn Lattimore the entire contest. And so really it's more of a Calvin Ridley and Austin Hooper are more likely to get the work. I think that Matt Ryan could have a solid game thrown to them. But it's still not going to be enough. Matt Ryan I still have as a high-end quarterback to kind of that quarterback 10 to 13 range for this week. He may put up a lot of fantasy points in desperation and just throwing the ball in garbage time to try to keep up. But that's the max I see out of his value. So really, I think the Saints win this. They have a pretty decent defense, so I think the Saints win this. With how bad the Falcons' defense is, it's in New Orleans. I'm going to say, let's go 31 to 17.
And I'll give the same